Hi guys, it's Savannah Mcpherson and this is my History of Education PowerPoint. I decided to focus on the modern period, which is about 1980 to the present. I decided to focus on that era because I think it's important because this is the time period that we're in now, and it's interesting because there's so much evolution of education and technology even within this time period. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy my PowerPoint. What was and what is life like in the U.S. during this time period? Well, during this time period in the United States, we can see that diversity is being accepted more so than it ever has before, and people are being included regardless of how they differ from others. To me, life is becoming very luxurious in means of technology, and it seems that people seem to stray from the more traditional values that we see in the previous time periods. What are some important historical events that take place during this time period, and how did they affect education? So, there are several historical events that occur during this time period, and the following that I'm going to mention are just a small subset. So we have the Pan Am Lockerbie explosion, which happened in 1988, the Siege of Waco, which happened in 1993, and the Oklahoma City bombing, which happened in 1995. These events didn't really have a direct effect on education, but they were events that were added to the curriculum. The Columbine shooting, which happened in 1999. After this event, several policies put into place to protect students and to protect the schools. So to continue on with important historical events that took place during this time period and how they affected education, in 2006, Saddam Hussein was executed, and the only way it really affected American education was that it was added to our textbooks and our curriculum. But it affected Iraq's education because more children were allowed to receive an education. In 2008, we see Barack Obama take office. This is important because students saw their first African American president, and there were also some policies that were set in place to better education. One of those policies being the stimulus package law. This law included $100 billion in education money that was given to fund programs for special education, low-income students, and early childhood initiatives, and also to provide incentive to everyone from teachers to state officials to think in terms of reform. And the last event that I'm going to mention is when Osama bin Laden was killed in 2011. Once again, it didn't really directly have an effect on America's education, but it was an important event that was added to our social studies curriculum. What laws were passed concerning education during this time period? There were several laws that dealt with education that were established during this time period, and the following are just a small subset. Public Law 94-142 was established in 1975. It is also known as the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. Another thing we see in 1983 is A Nation at Risk, which dealt with education reform and provided 5 recommendations for attaining excellence in education. In 1986, we saw A Nation Prepared, which dealt with improving teaching and recommended the formation of the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards. And in 1988, we saw A Nation Still at Risk, which was used to summarize the concerns over the state of education in the U.S. To continue on with what laws were passed during this time period that concerned education, in 1989, we saw Goals 2000, which established a framework in which to identify world-class academic standards to measure student progress and to provide support that students may need to meet standards. In 1997 and also in 2004, we see IDEA reauthorization, which was the renewal of Public Law 94-142, which was renamed to IDEA, which is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, in 1990. In 2001, we also saw No Child Left Behind, It provides money for extra educational assistance for poor children in returns for improvements in their academic progress. So, what were schools like during this time, and how did schools differ in different parts of the country? So, schools and student diversity were evolving very quickly during this time period, and they still are. We can see resources such as the encyclopedia and our textbooks being replaced with online technologies and resources. Schools in the United States during this time are accepting all children as students and not taking their race or their origin into account. Also, certain schools are beginning to add more modern luxuries, such as larger gymnasiums and auditoriums. Schools across the country are all in different situations, however, because some are financially able to provide students with their own technology resources, and others are not financially able. So, one question that gets asked a lot is technology being used in the classroom. Is it really a benefit or is it a hindrance to teachers and students? So, I found this video and it talks about how technology is going to transform the modern day classroom and how it's going to be used to benefit everybody. If you can't get the video to work in the PowerPoint, I have provided the link below the video as well. I really encourage you to watch this video. It is a great video. So during this time period, all children get to go to school, and I think that is such an awesome and amazing thing. I have taken the liberty to include a couple of pictures to show you. On the far left side, it is the Cherokee High School class of 1983. My aunt actually graduated in that class. The one below that is the Cherokee High School class of 1990. My uncle graduated in that class. And then on the far right side is part of the Woodstock High School class of 2015, which was actually my graduating class. So I just wanted to take a moment and share those pictures with you. So, according to the overview of the history of education that was provided for us, what was being taught during this time period are the basics of English, math, science, and social studies, and also computer science. Another thing that I found that was important to mention that was being taught is critical thinking skills and problem solving skills, because those skills are what students will use throughout their entire lives. So, why did students learn this content? Students learn the required material because it was able to provide an education for all children. In my personal opinion, it also gives students the basic skills they will use in the future, as I mentioned on the previous slide. So, how was the content taught? Since this time period is stretched over a little more than 4 decades, the way content was taught differs even within the modern time period. However, during this time period, we can see the following: better prepared teachers and an increased use of technology. When we first started back in the 80s, we saw the textbooks and the pencil and the paper and the dinosaur computer is what I like to call it. Today, we are seeing less textbooks and more technology. I teach at a school where we have nothing but laptops, and every single kid has their own personal laptop they're allowed to take home every night to do homework. So, what impact does this time period have on instruction today? The first half of this time period impacts instruction today because the basis of the content students learn today, the tools they use, and even some of the instructional methods were introduced during this time period. For example, in today's curriculum, students are being taught how to problem solve, which is a skill students will need to function in today's society. One of the influential educators that I found during this time period was Viola Spolin. Miss Spolin was a theater academic and an educator. She is considered an important innovator of the 20th century American theater for creating directional techniques to help actors to be focused in the present moment and try to find choices improvisationally, as if it were real life. And even though Miss Spolin only dealt with the dramatics of theater, I thought she was a great influential educator because students are being taught to problem solve now and to think quickly on their feet. And Miss Bolin is just a great example of how to do that. Another influential educator that I found was Ron Clark. Ron Clark is an American educator who worked with disadvantaged students in rural North Carolina and New York City, and he also founded the Ron Clark Academy right here in Atlanta, Georgia. The last influential educator I want to mention is Toru Kumon. Kumon was a Japanese mathematics educator. He created the Kumon method of learning after he examined his son's textbooks and believed that they lacked the proper opportunity for a child to practice and master the topic. Alright, so who doesn't love some fun facts? Because I know I do. In 2012, there were 78 million students enrolled in schools spanning from nursery school to college. More teachers in public schools tend to hold a master's degree compared to charter schools and private schools. Around 480,000 yellow school buses carry 25 million children to and from school every day. The U.S. ranks 5 in college degree holders. And America is where you will find the world's oldest teacher, Agnes Zelnick, who is 102 years old as of 2016. Thank you guys so much for going through my presentation. I know it's been long and I'm sorry, but I at least hope you found one thing interesting or learned something new. Thank you guys. Have a great and very blessed day.